Hello, I'm Melinda Sampson, the Community Outreach Coordinator for NC Stop Human Trafficking. Victim advocate Kyla Reed today, but something came up for her, but that's okay. We've got some information that we still want to share with you, and hopefully we can have her on sometime this month for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and as an organization here at NC Stop Human Trafficking, we really want to highlight the intersection between teen dating violence, intimate partner violence, and human trafficking. The intersection between teen dating violence and human trafficking is huge. In many trafficking cases, intimate partner violence and human trafficking are inextricably linked, really. Intimate partner violence, or teen dating violence in this case, becomes human trafficking when the abuser begins to generate a profit or gain things off of the abuse of someone else, or their partner's abuse, excuse me. Through the lens of teen dating, the abuser may pressure their partner into performing commercial sex acts for money, social status, or something else of value. So on the other side of that, we can look at labor trafficking and coercing a partner into working, which also includes but is not limited to illegal activities such as drug dealing or other kinds of illegal activity that also would constitute labor trafficking, though that victim would probably get arrested for that illegal activity. So with that, we're gonna be focusing more on sex trafficking for this talk. And if y'all, all means, please ask them. And if I don't answer you while I'm going on with this, I will come back and answer those questions later in the comment section. So with that, it's important to remember also that if a person's under the age of 18, and teenagers are under the age of 18 and performing a commercial sex act, they're automatically victims of sex trafficking. So we want to keep that in mind. In the state of North Carolina, that's the law. But according to the National Human Trafficking Hotlines in 2019 data, the top method of recruitment of victims is through an intimate partner relationship, or selling that romantic dream, if you would. The same numbers also indicate that a large swath of victimization began before the survivor was 18 years of age. The numbers are actually between 14 and 17 where victimization began. And this is just according to the National Human Trafficking Hotline numbers. It's important for you to know that that hotline data is accurate, but it's not all inclusive. It includes data collected from calls to the hotline, and that's it. So there's no data from law enforcement investigations or social services providers, including domestic violence shelters or domestic violence advocates or sexual assault advocates or children's advocacy centers, just so you're aware. So though we do cite the National Human Trafficking Hotline numbers, we do want you to know that those numbers are very limited in their scope, and they are just the best numbers that we have right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a limited qualitative study called, the study's name is It's All Whatever as Long as You Keep Telling Me I'm Important. It's a case study illustrating the link between adolescent dating violence and sex trafficking victimization. And I'm letting you know that this study is very limited. It's 4 interviews with survivors, but the researchers kind of condensed it down to what the survivor stories told and the common threads through it. And in that, based on those 4 survivor stories, the researchers concluded that there are 6 driving factors that ultimately led these sex trafficked in their teen years. So the survivors said, according to the study, had feelings of being unattractive and unimportant, which led to the trafficker's ability to groom them and flatter them and offer that romantic relationship that made them feel good about themselves. So another one is they had lacked examples of healthy relationships in their life. They also all had experiences of sexual abuse, which allowed them to disassociate, and it caused emotional debilitation as well. The romantic gestures and flattery that led to that emotional attachment to the trafficker was very strong in all those cases, those romantic gestures and that flattery led to that relationship beginning, and it also led to there being an emotional attachment that was very intense for the survivors themselves. And they also gained a minute ago I said they lacked, in the beginning they lacked that confidence, that self-esteem. They felt unattractive and unimportant, but they ended up gaining confidence from dating somebody of a higher social status. So they were dating somebody who had a higher social status, or they thought were impressive as people, who became their abusers. And then they also gained confidence from earning more money than other women. Now, as they became involved in commercial sexual exploitation, and gaining that confidence from those two levels kind of kept them in the situation itself, according to the study. If you want to read a little bit more about these 6 links that the study highlighted, by all means, I do have it. It's not I think, I do. The link to our blog is in the description of this live, and you can always go to our blog and read a little bit more about what that means. I'm not going to dwell too long on it because I do want to talk to you about some preventative measures, because as I give you this information about teen dating violence and it's linked to and sex trafficking, I want to make sure you know what we can do to prevent it. So healthy relationship education is very important in preventing human trafficking for young people. Receiving messages from early childhood about consent and respect will ingrain in young people a set of ethics and acceptable behavior that basically rebukes violence altogether. NC Stop Human Trafficking kind of recognized that, and we developed a caregiver empowerment session called Talking to Kids About Boundaries, Consent, and Porn, and that session is for all ages. It's for caregivers who care for kids of all ages, and it gives you tips on how to talk to kids about boundaries, consent, and pornography through early childhood through teenage years. If you're uncomfortable with having that kind of talk, because it can be they are hard conversations to have, but they're also necessary conversations to have. So another way that we can, as a society, prevent teen dating violence that evolves into trafficking. Children, girls are different, but also equal. This would result in boys treating girls as equal throughout life, and also result in girls expecting that respect. Normalizing the equity of the sexes would reduce cross-gender violence in intimate partner relationships and reduce sexual violence. Specifically, sex trafficking of girls or women in an intimate partner relationship would be prevented. When we talk about gender equity or gender equality, we really need to talk about it. We need to start ingraining that idea into our society, because a lot of sexual violence and a lot of intimate partner violence is based off the idea that women and girls deserve it, or women and girls aren't deserving of a safe environment. And it's a narrative that needs to be combated at an early age. Also a person who is sitting in a place of privilege, and I'm talking about prevention right now, so a person sitting in a place of privilege will be able to identify a humanity of all people and live the values of respect, caring, and equality in their relationships. To reduce intimate partner violence and sexual violence, not only in their personal relationships, but also combat violence against marginalized people, including but not limited to people of color and LGBTQ people, or Black and Indigenous people of color. So as we as a society need to value social justice and equality for all people, and make sure people are treated fairly all the time. And that combats sexual violence, it combats human trafficking, and it also combats intimate partner violence. Parents and adults could model and teach positive relationship skills. So kids learn from their parents and their caregivers and the adults in their life. When children witness that adults and caregivers in their lives modeling positive relationships, they're more likely to do the same thing, frankly. And that also includes conflict resolution skills that they could use. And it does not need to include violence or verbal assault, being ugly. People are able to identify and respond to red flags of intimate partner violence. So understanding what intimate partner violence is and understanding it's not okay and it's not normal, or it shouldn't be anyway, then that's a good to not only address the issue of victimization, but also address the issue of what is intimate partner violence for young people anyway. If they don't know what it is, they are not going to recognize that they are experiencing it or could be experiencing it. When others sees the indicators of abuse, or when an adult may be failing to respect boundaries, it's important that people notice this behavior as not normal and address it in an effective and constructive way. So we need more people to come out and say, this isn't normal behavior, this is not okay. And the more people start saying this is not okay in intimate partner violence situations or teen dating violence situations, the less it'll be normalized. And that's really important, because the less we can normalize intimate partner violence and teen dating violence, the less it'll happen. Healthy relationships, honoring boundaries, and healthy sexuality is modeled across all community institutions and entities in prevention. So if violence is not the norm in communities, then it will not be the norm in relationships, basically. The same standards and accountability across all groups and people are imperative to maintain this protective factor. So when we as a community come together and we display healthy relationships and how they are and how they should be, and honoring boundaries, then in institutions and entities, including schools, then we are going to be able to prevent teen dating violence and intimate partner violence that won't evolve, and that won't eventually evolve into sex trafficking, because again, we haven't normalized that behavior. And these are tall orders, I do recognize that. I'm talking about changing some institutions and some mindsets that might be difficult to change. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about prevention, primary prevention specifically, and making sure kids aren't victimized through violence and sex trafficking and labor trafficking, then we need to take what we see in society and kind of flip it around a little bit and make people understand that violence is not acceptable. Conflict resolution is important, and learning those skills as adults too, because there are some adults that do need to learn those skills as well. We can model that for our kids, and then that generation coming up isn't going to see that violence as normal behavior and what to expect in relationships. So with that being said, we want to make healthy relationships not only a social norm, but highly regarded. That would be wonderful. When we can celebrate healthy relationships and how to have a healthy relationship and how to be honest, will go a long way to change the narrative of sex trafficking or teen dating violence as it relates to sex trafficking, or teen dating violence, period. When healthy relationships are valued and considered normal, then abusive and controlling behavior will be reduced significantly by default. And that's what we're looking for. Intimate partner violence, teen dating violence, mechanisms of control that traffickers have, it's all based on abuse and control, the power and control dynamic. In intimate partner violence, that power and control dynamic is for power and control. The power and control dynamic for trafficking is for power and control, of course, but also for profit. So once we're able to glorify healthy relationships and make it a social norm, then we are able to kind of make a dent in the victim to trafficker pipeline, if you would. So if anybody needs help, if they're in an intimate partner if they're in a relationship and are experiencing intimate partner violence, they can always call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. Or if you're in Eastern North Carolina, you can call the Center for Family Violence Prevention at 252-758-4400. If you suspect someone is being trafficked, or you yourself are being trafficked and you need help, you can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888, and that hotline directs people in North Carolina about how to respond. So North Carolina doesn't have a central hotline. We use the national one, so to call that one. If there are any questions, again, please put them in the chat. Please, not the chat box. I'm sorry, I've been doing a lot of webinars. Please put them in the comment box or the comments down below, and I'll answer them as you ask the questions. If you want more information, you can always email me at melinda@ncstophumantrafficking. You can check out our blog, or you can check out our newsletter this week, because we're focusing on teen dating violence this week. If there's anything else, just let me know, and keep in touch. I want to answer all your questions and get all the information you need to you. Thanks so much.